Welcome to the Norris Group Real Estate Podcast, a show committed to bringing you insights from thought leaders shaping the real estate industry. In each episode, we'll dive into conversations with industry experts and local insiders, all aimed at helping you thrive in an ever-changing real estate market, continuing the legacy that Bruce Norris created, sharing valuable knowledge, and empowering you on your real estate journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or a newcomer, this is your go-to source for insider tips, market trends, and success strategies. Here's your host, Craig Evans.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for coming back this week. Get ready for part 2 with Craig Hill on trust deed investing. Well, so what are the, what do you think are the top 3 criteria that you consider when you're looking to approve or offer loan terms?
Okay. Well, I think one is the property itself, obviously.
Yep.
And it's not just, it doesn't have to be, say, like a stucco house in Irvine. That doesn't make it, say, better. What I really look for is like conformity of the product and how it is with regards to the neighborhood. Because if you have something, that like, say, Lakewood, where I grew up, Lakewood has all these little 1,000 square foot houses.
Yep.
Well, you know what? If you're going to buy a house there, you're probably going to have ample comps that are exactly like it.
Right.
So you're really, we talked about those basic numbers earlier. The biggest mistake is when you can't get an accurate after repaired value, because what you're looking at is unique. Like maybe everything is stucco in Irvine, 2,500 square feet on a quarter acre, let's say.
Yep.
Well, now you have a property in a similar, not too far away, but it's on an acre and it's older. You don't know what that's worth.
Right.
You just really don't know what that property's worth. So number one is just trying to find like a property that you're pretty sure what the value is. I think that's so helpful to both sides. Probably number 2 is the amount of liquid cash. And I know for people just starting out, that's kind of like, it seems hard to get to that point, but you really do need to have the cash, because so often there's going to be something that comes up that you don't prepare for. And you just want to make sure you have ample cash so that if the property takes more than a year to sell or whatever the case may be, because I think, geez, it's over 6,000, maybe 7,000 loans that I've done with the Norris Group.
Yep.
You know what? Not every one of those goes like they think it's going to go.
Sure.
So you have to be prepared, to do that. You can't be relying on that one deal to pay your bills. Like if that's the case, then you need to bring on a partner, somebody that can take that load off you, but you're willing to do all the work and do all the learning. So I do think it's important to have cash. And then equally important is going to be, say, experience and credit. Kind of those are equal. That's 2 other things. But credit, we're not really looking for a credit score, but we're looking for, but really I compare 2 different scenarios. One is somebody that has like a 580 credit score and they got 300 grand in the bank.
Yeah.
Because they already went through their crisis and now they've come out of the other end, Right. Now the other one has like 740 and they have 100 grand worth of credit cards and they're up 98 is what's borrowed. See, they're one purchase away from being the other guy 5 years ago.
Right.
So you kind of have to look at that. Sometimes score is deceptive. Obviously if somebody has active judgments, bankrupt, things like that, you can't do it. But, tax liens. But, you just try to look at it once again, as we've been talking, it's more common sense to do it. And then I think any experience is good. for somebody new. Maybe they're a realtor, so that kind of gives them one aspect of the, the repairs and et cetera, the pricing. Maybe they're a contractor. Maybe they have a family member that's one of those. So all those things are helpful to get, to get somebody, make it just a more likelihood of success. One time, not one time, but just a quick story on that. I had a guy and I was asking him my 3 questions, right? And I said, well, what do you think you can sell it for? What do you think the repairs are? And I said, well, where'd you get your information? And he said, from the selling agent. I said, well, he's the guy making the commission on it, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
You can't, it's just, but I mean, to me, that was just such a red. The guy might have been the most honest guy in the world, but I mean, you have to have another source beside the guy that's making money on you buying.
Exactly.
So, like I say, so we really do try to help. And then, not to forget, we have so many repetitive borrowers that I'm so thankful for. I mean, I really am thankful because they like the service we provide, the speed at which we work. And I think just the honesty with how we work with them, so, it's not only new people, but we have a large following of like investors. And a lot of times what happens, Craig, is they outgrow us.
Yep.
I use Mike. I hope Mike doesn't. Well, we'll just say Mike. So, but, a guy like Mike, he outgrows the need for, good investors outgrow the need for this. But, you're happy to see that too, because you got the next guy that you're bringing up that could turn into that next, really good client. So,
well, and I know what's interesting is we've had a lot of investors that have grown, from being borrowers of us or with us, and now they're growing to where there's different paper out there and there's different lending forms that are more affordable for them. Understand that completely.
Yes.
And they've grown their portfolio to be able to afford that and handle that and do that. And then what's interesting is they still believe in this form. And so they're coming back now and they're investors with us. So they're investing in other people's trustees,
absolutely.
and that's cool to see. So with that, before we kind of go into the lender side, I want to talk from the lending side of just a minute, but before we do that, do me a favor, walk through kind of, briefly the mechanics of, from the borrower to the Norris Group, and then from the Norris Group to the lender,
Okay.
How that transpires.
Okay. Basically what the start of the process will be usually a phone call, but then it leads into them sending in an application. So we'll get the application. I'll do a quick review of it. Like I say, just kind of check the numbers, talk to them, see if it looks like there's anything on the surface that would prevent it from, like, say, moving into the appraisal. So after that, we'll do the appraisal. So once we get the appraisal, then we have the real numbers. So, we have the numbers we're going to work with. So we get the appraisal. Ron is working on getting escrow and prelim. So we're just kind of putting together a quick package. We'll get a credit report on the borrower. So we're going to run the credit, and, we put the package together from the borrower's position that way. Then for the investor side of it, the process there would be, once we have the appraisal, we'll kind of send out the appraisal with the numbers that are going to be attached to the deal. So, it's going to be this property, this loan amount, this ARV. And usually I tell them, now at this point is, realize a lot of people have done hundreds of deals with us, so it's kind of a real quick process. But for somebody new, let's say, so I always tell them, if it's somebody new, I don't want to say, I have to know by, in a half hour. So usually I'll try to give them some time. Just give me kind of tentative up, okay, just in case they want to look at go look at the property if they're in the vicinity, if they, they want to do their own research, what have you.
Sure.
We'll send them a copy of the credit report so they have that. So, that's something that, they kind of look at the credit and the property. Those are the two things that they look at.
Well, the fact that a lot of our investors are investing in our trust deeds because a lot of your experience and what you look at and understand how you write your paper,
Yeah, they're relying, because the way I kind of look at it, they're relying on the Norris Group and myself and Rhonda, who looks at the prelims, and Robin before, we're looking at all that for them.
Sure.
So I do think it simplifies it, because then they're just looking at the property, which they can kind of see, and then, the credit of the person they're lending the money to. So that's just those are kind of the two aspects they go with. So,
and that's a benefit, because obviously we don't, the investors that are investing in hard money loans, they got to do their own due diligence, but there's a big value to understanding that, hey, if Craig is underwriting or he's bringing us the paper to invest in and to look at, you've already done the due diligence to know what's the equity to ARV relationship in this scenario, and what's their cash flow situation. And, so you're not bringing scrub paper, so to speak. I think that brings a big value there to that investor, So the other thing I think is interesting, there's different requirements for California versus Florida being an investor. If you're investing either from California or in California, there's certain requirements that have to be met. Walk our audience through what that looks like to say, hey, I need to qualify to be a trust deed investor.
Yeah.
What does those look like?
Yeah. So in California, it's the guideline is any one trust deed can be no more than 10% of your net worth. So, it didn't used to be that way, but that's how it has been maybe the last 10, maybe even longer now, years. So that's a little bit, for some people that's challenging. Unfortunately for me, for the longest time, I had a lot of my friends that gradually saw what I did, but, a lot of them maybe just didn't have that much net worth, especially when they were buying like a $200,000 trust deed, or
sure,
so it is a little bit where you do have to have it, but then once again, they're making it where, a trust deed shouldn't be an investment that you're really living on it per se. I know a lot of people kind of feel that, like, oh, geez, if a payment's late, or, geez, I can't buy bread. But I mean, I know the guy's got like another 20 grand a month coming in,
right.
So he can buy bread, but you don't want to be in the situation where, they truly are waiting on it to live on. So that's kind of the general rule of thumb.
When raising money in anything is always, I mean, it's not just an easy snap of the hand, so to speak. Raising, I think, for trust deeds can sometimes even be a little more difficult. Yes, it's a one-to-one relationship, but then their risk aversion, is all focused on that one trust deed into one asset, right? So,
right.
So in raising money for trust deeds isn't just as simple as connecting people with money to people that need money, right? So I mean, so when you're looking at it, what makes aside from, hey, your net worth has to be 10%, what do you think makes someone a good trust deed lender candidate?
Well, I think a general understanding of like what it is, like, which takes, say, the scary part out of it. Some people probably would be better off just to putting it in the savings account, Personally, I would have thought that's me. I know my personality. And when I going back to like when I first met Bruce, my whole thing was like, oh, I want to be a property buyer. This looks like, and I looked at everything that was involved in that and Bruce, and I was like, man, I just want to invest in trust deeds. You know what I mean? So I gravitated to that because it was a business I understood, but it was a risk level that I was comfortable with.
Sure.
And I think maybe that's it's for an investor that is, maybe a little risk adverse, but on the other hand, that not to the fact where they don't want to do anything. So it kind of puts most of the risk is on the person. Say if it's Bruce doing the deal way back when, well, he's the one that's taking the risk.
So let's face it, over the last, since 2020, COVID hit. And I'm not going to go back to 2008 and what we looked through that transference of timing. Maybe we'll go back a little bit, but the reality is the private lending space, whether it's first position trust deed, fund lending, things like that, that space was a good and interesting space, right? 2020, all of a sudden, that became a really interesting space based off what was happening in the market and where things were going. What do you see is in the market is helping to dictate what type of loan we offer at the Norris Group?
Yeah, I think just looking at our history, we've always tried to be like looking into the future, if you will. One thing I realized, because I remember like the first 5 years of the Norris Group, Bruce always coming into my office like, what are we going to do next? Like there might be a time when there's no hard money.
Sure.
But year after year after year, we did realize there always was hard money, with the exception of, maybe 06 and 07, we really slowed down. I think one reason we didn't get hit as hard and had nobody got through unscathed, but we came out very favorable because it was painfully obvious that this was way too high.
Yeah.
So with the exception of those 2 years, it just seems like that there's always something on the horizon. So what happened with that, and then I'll get to the current, but like we came out for hard money, which was really unheard of at the time. In 08, maybe 09, we started an 8-year loan at a really low interest rate at the time.
Okay.
And the reason being, it made sense. So you're always trying to look for something that makes sense. And then gradually we went down to 5 and down to 3. And currently we're really just doing 1 because a lot of the money side is not sure what's next, if you will. So, you're always trying to find what's next. And it's usually because it makes sense for both sides. Like right now, buying a house in California as a rental using hard money, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Even if we did go 8 years, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. In 09, it did because the prices were so low and we were able to offer a rate that was very competitive at the time. So the borrowers aren't looking for that product. So because of that, almost everybody's doing like a flip situation. So the one year loan is sufficient. So it seems to be that's where most of the business is right now. I mean, occasionally somebody will have something that just makes so much sense from a loan to value point of view that we might go longer right now.
Sure.
But, just as far as the business goes, just right now, the 1 year loan seems to be what the investors are comfortable with. And it also seems to make sense with what the longtime buyers are looking for. So
I think that's a key point to look at because there's so many people that ask me all the time, why are your rates this when I can go to, we used B of A earlier, right? I can go to B of A. In other words, your bank on the street, so to speak, and get a different rate. And I think that people forget that private money, there's a yield that has to be met. that we're not talking about institutional rate money or Fed rate money. We're talking about private money that a yield has to be met. And when you've got certificates and bonds that are generating yield at one point, the rate of private mortgages, private lending, hard money, the whatever term we're going to throw at that, it's got to make sense to those investors. When you've got high volatility in markets, and there's so many factors that come into play in that process. So talk to our audience about what we've currently got. I know we're primarily in a 1-year rate right, or 1-year term right now for most of our loans. Again, that's not because we don't want to offer more. That's what the market is saying. Hey, that's where we can offer and have a good product for our investors at a rate, and also a very fair rate for a good rate for our borrowers, and then a good yield for our investors. So we've got that 1-year time frame. What is the current ARV, the points, the offerings, those things?
Yeah. So basically now, and there's always fluctuations on this.
Sure.
But the typical deal is going to be like a 1-year loan. It's going to be 10.9%, 1 point. And most of the deals are around 15% down on the purchase price.
Okay.
And then there are some that are less, some that are more. We do add, sometimes we add repairs and such. So it's just really to go with that one basic scenario, because everything else from there is really depending on the appraisal, what you bought it for. In other words,
strength of the
it's just a matter. It's a matter of math. Like if, the same $500,000 house, if one client bought it for $350 and another one bought it for $310, the guy that bought it for $310 is going to have less down.
Yep.
So it's kind of hard to just say this is what it is going to be.
Yep.
So that's why I'm very open to like having people call me with numbers and discussing numbers. And I always take the time on the phone to say, what's the address? I do what I told you. I look it up on Google while they're on the phone.
Yep.
I see where it is, because sometimes if I don't do that, I've found that I do all this talking, then I look it up on Google and it's something we won't even do.
Sure.
Or, you know what I mean? So I always like to be able to try to give them a real fair assessment of what I think we can do right in that initial conversation.
So we've got audience members out there, listeners today. How do they apply to a loan or for a loan from us? And can they actually find you? Will they be able to talk with you? What does that process look like? Walk them through that.
The people, one thing that's always surprised me is all my clients the whole time have said, it's amazing you pick up the phone. So the best way to reach me is just probably call me at the office. So 951-780-5856, and it's extension 102. So that's probably the easiest way. I still like talking on the phone. I know a lot of people don't. So if that is, if you want to send an email, just shoot me an email at Craig, CRAIG, at thenorrisgroup.com, and, say I have a deal I'd like to run by you. Usually I'll respond with, send me these basic information, like address, the 3 things I told you, what you think it's worth, the repairs. So, and then what I'll do is I'll take a look at it, and I'll probably email them and say, hey, here's what I'll do. Give me a call if you want. So, at that point we can talk about it. So that's probably the easiest way, just to say, get started. And then also our website, thenorrisgroup.com, you can just go on there and fill out a loan application. And those come to Joey, Rhonda, and myself. So we always catch those. And I tell people that's the one thing that I work quickly on. So if you send in an application, at 1:00 in the afternoon and you haven't heard by 4 or 5, or certainly the next morning, first thing, shoot me an email or call. Because sometimes the way the system is, it'll go to what they call the back end. You know me, I'm not a computer person. So I have no idea what that is.
How long does it take somebody to fill out an application and get that to us so it's in your hands?
Yeah, that's good. Good question, because it really probably only takes about 5 minutes. we just ask, there's two ways to go about it. It'll say, I have a deal I want you to review, or I just want you to look at me per se. So you pick one of those two. Even if it's the deal you want to review, it should only take about 5 minutes or so. It just asks some basic contact information. It asks a little bit about the property. It asks like cash available. You don't have to fill out a credit report, or, it doesn't ask for credit. It's actually a very simple process. So it shouldn't really be hard to start that process.
If you want to learn more about investing in trust deeds, you can go to our website at www.thenorrisgroup.com. If you'll click on that hard money tab, you get to download a free book that we've written and updated called, it's our ebook for trust deed investing. You can also reach out to Joey, send him an email to joey@thenorrisgroup.com. And again, if you're interested in being a borrower from us, you can reach out to Craig@thenorrisgroup.com. And we'll take great care of you. We appreciate the loyalty of all of our listeners, all of our investors, all of our borrowers throughout the years. We're so grateful. Listen, till next time, everybody, thank you for joining in today. Craig, thank you, my friend.
Right. Thanks, Craig.
For more information on hard money loans, trust deed investing, and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For more information on passive investing through the DBL Capital Real Estate Investment Fund, please visit dblcapital.com.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under the California DRE license 01219911, Florida Mortgage Lender license 1577, and NMLS license 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the hard money tab.